Thank you, Rival. It's 2:20 here in London. We're an hour after lunch for most of you, so it's the best time to be talking about esports and the future of what we think gaming is. As introduced, my name is Chris Cataldi. I'm from a company called Genvid Technologies. Just as a quick tutorial for myself, how many of you have heard one of my talks or our talks before Genvid? Great. Okay, Chris, who works for us, and Kathleen, who works for us, you've heard that? Great, so fantastic. I have 15 minutes to get through a lot of material. I hope by the end of it I've shared something of value to you, and let's get through it. A little bit, before I get into the meat of it, I want to talk a little bit about who we are and why we do what we do. The company was started in 2016 by a bunch of game industry veterans from AAA firms, including Ubisoft, Square Enix, and we've grown from 4 people to just under 50 people. I remember our first meeting in a very small hotel room when we were thinking about what we were going to do, and now we have 6 offices in 4 different countries. And our whole thesis is, as I'm going to speak to you about, creating, the last speaker spoke about in traditional sports and media, broadcast rights are the biggest pool of value. We want to make sure that game developers can access that and create some cool experiences. I like showing a picture of the crazy people who are on this journey with me, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to stand here and rant at you. So we're very proud of the people who joined us along the way. If you haven't heard of us, we're a business-to-business company. We partner with game developers, streaming platforms, tournament organizers, and others to create cool experiences. And some of the case studies that we've come along the way are what I'm going to be sharing with you today. By the way, I'm from New York. We have a wonderful habit of speaking very quickly, especially when it's about something I care a lot about, which is the company I helped found. So if at any point during my talk I'm speaking too quickly for you, please tell me to stop for my own benefit. So what we're seeing is a merge towards what we call interactive streaming. Traditional games are becoming more like linear content. Linear content are trying to become more like games. A really good example of this is Bandersnatch with Netflix, where they took a not-so-novel game design construct, which is choose your own adventure, built some videos around it, pretty much what was done in Wing Commander, et cetera, in the 80s and 90s, and invented a new kind of genre. In general, whether it's media is a loaded word, ad buyers and content creators on that side, or games, there's a lot of convergence happening. And the question is, who's going to lead that new era? Is it going to be traditional media? Is it going to be Netflix that's going to make the killer app? Or is it going to be Epic who's going to make the killer app that dethrones Netflix in terms of eyeballs? And they see each other as rivals, if you've been following media. In any regards, since we're from the game industry, we believe that game developers have the edge when it comes to creating interactive experiences. That's literally what the game industry is all about. But there are some things that when we port our experiences to broadcast, we need to start thinking about. And there are a lot that we can learn from the physical world. And so there's always a juxtaposition between physical sports and esports. I'm going to break it down in a bit of a different way than I think many have. And it's like this. So if you look at value creation and just in general population size in the physical sports world, the smallest audience, so the smallest population is in the player base, right? The number of people playing sports, especially professionally, is the smallest. In terms of how they're monetized, it's also actually the opposite. They're not monetized in terms of you don't get money from them, you pay them to play. Then on the next stage from that, you have the participant. These are pretty much the fans who go to a physical location, people who are going to a stadium. And they're, in general, monetized the most per capita. Right? So these are people who are buying seats, have season passes, buying box seats or buying concessions, etc. And for the most part, the content that's being created is very much built around them. Right? What are the best angles? Therefore, what's the best seat in the house? Right? What do they want in terms of concessions? So let's make sure we have them so they can buy them. These aren't people who are good at the game. These aren't people who potentially ever played the game, or if they have, they haven't played recently, right? But they are the core customer. And then next you have the viewers, the people at home, who in a per capita perspective aren't paying the most, right? They're not paying maybe pay-per-view, they're paying a little bit of money, but for the most part, they're not paying anything. They're just tuning in, or maybe they're, But in aggregate, in summary, they're monetized the most. This is the broadcast deal, right? What you'll also notice is there's a very strong correlation between the experiences in terms of viewing angles, in terms of stats, between what the participant in the stadium gets and what the viewer at home gets, right? It's a watered-down version of that. So let's juxtapose that against digital, which is esports and games. Currently, the people playing the video games, I would warrant, are the biggest audience, right? But they're not at all monetized directly via esports, right? I mean, unless you're talking about matchmaking, where you go and you play a game with other people and the winner gets something. In general, they exist to buy product, but they're not creating content for other people. The participant doesn't really exist. The people who go to the stadium is a sub-function of the player base, right? And so yes, there are massive, major tournaments. People buy tickets to them, but in terms of overall percentage, it's so small, so it's not even to warrant a real population. Also, if you again remember the prior participant allegory, these participants are people who don't necessarily play the game. They just like the game and they're going to be a part of whatever that live experience is. For the most part, that population doesn't exist for esports, right? I mean, maybe someone's being dragged by their sales head to go and, oh, esports is a thing, I'm going to check it out. But again, not representative of any real population. And then the people watching at home are just kind of watching at home. And since there's no real participant experience, their experience isn't really based on the participant experience like you would in the physical world. Like best camera angles, what are the best camera angles right now for games? It's pretty much the player camera angle, and that's about it. We're not really thinking about viewability. So in general, we have an underserved market, right? We have people who are playing, we have people playing games, people watching games, but there's no real service design. I don't know, is it me? Okay, nope. Looks okay, we'll keep it like that. Okay, we have people, oh, that's amazing. I don't know what. Should I unplug it and plug it again, or is that? It might be the slide itself. Well, I can just, we have an underserved market. People are, no, it's not the slide. It's working fine until a second ago. If he stands next to me, that'll just make it work. Well, thank you.
I can't see.
No, that's good. So we have, okay, so we have an underserved market. A lot of content is pretty much, the main people behind, if you look at motivations as well, people who are in real sports, the franchise owners, the people who own the stadiums, the people who benefit from broadcast rights, own the game, right? They own sport, they own football for all intents and purposes, they own baseball, basketball. And so when they're creating service design for the customer of the viewing experience, they are thinking about not the player experience, but the viewer experience, right? Anyway, I'll just back up. So we have people playing, we have people who aren't actually customers, and that's currently the entire makeup of esports. But we could do a lot more using pretty much the idea that people care about the game, not necessarily just the people playing it. And we have to start thinking about what the service design is for participants, the people who care about the game but may not play the game. And there could be people who would like the game if they knew what the game was. And right now there's a very kind of opaque force field around the game that you have to earn your right to watch. And that's kind of silly if you think about traditional esports. So now I'm going to go into some case studies. We've powered the last 3 Counter-Strike majors for Twitch, creating interactive experiences that are both monetizable in a premium pass or single purchase experience, as well as a microtransaction on top of it. I'm going to do a thing that hopefully we'll see. It's okay, I just went out of presentation mode. No, but that might have killed the presentation. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm one of the difficult speakers who likes to show live streams. Oh, here we go. And it's in extension mode. That's fine. I can move that over. So this is a live stream on Twitch right now, and it's a demo, so I can show it to you. But it's the experience that should be the standard going forward for esports. You've seen Counter-Strike before. Any of you buy the premium pass for any of the last couple of majors? And you're one of my customers. Thank you very much. The idea here is you're watching the game. If you don't know what's going on, you can click any element of it, get more information about the players, be able to see whenever you want the scoreboard in advance. And more interesting, the mini-map. Where are the players? What weapons do they have? What direction are they looking? Are they firing? I can click on a specific player if I want to, get their stats. And this is a new thing. And to get access to this, you pay, you subscribe to the channel, the ESL channel, or face it for the duration of the event. And what we're working on now is a new thing where viewers at home, why do you get a seat on the sidelines of a game? So you can yell and the players can hear you, right? That doesn't really exist with esports, so there's no motivation to really be there. And since esports is a digital medium, you should probably be able to do that in a digital manner. So say I click on this player, and I like this player a lot, and I cheer for him a lot, he starts going on fire, right? And we can start making, I've not affected him in this case because it's esports and you can't really affect him. But imagine you have a fan favorite that's based on the cheering from the fans watching live. Right now you are affecting the outcome in terms of which player gets the most status from it. We've been working really closely with Twitch to showcase some of their new offerings like Command Center, which lets you see any perspective you want from the match live, all of it using that interactive overlay you have on there. And so if you see a premium pass, Counter-Strike, etc. going forward, feel free to play around with it because it's pretty cool. And now I will go back to my presentation. So what's possible? Every game is different, so what developers should think about their game is kind of different. But we try to distill some key learning. Oh, maybe it's my computer, it doesn't like outputting HDMI. On the base informational level, thinking specifically about esports as they exist today that haven't been thought from the ground up in terms of camera angles, etc., for a crowd experience, we should at least be thinking about data for each viewer. So not everyone has the same interest, right? They don't have the same player that they like, so probably we should let them spectate the camera or cameras that they're interested in without having to go into Game Engine for it. We should be thinking about viewer guides, right? Making sure that people, maybe they haven't played for a couple months, maybe the meta is different now. For traditional sports, there exists a meta, but we don't care about it. We don't care about the material science behind the cleats in the shoes or what nutritional, we don't care, we just outsource all that. He sucks at kicking today, right? We just yell at them. But for games, there's a lot going on, and people who care. And for people who haven't played or watched ever for a while, you need to kind of ease them in a little bit. And where it gets later on, this is more for newer games, we have to think about the ability for viewers to actually dictate the outcome. What is home field advantage for esports? It doesn't exist today, and it's only really going to exist when a developer takes it into consideration. Right? And we take it into consideration today. That's why people sit in the front seats so they can yell at their favorite athlete, because in the back of our mind we think we're making a difference. And until we have that, esports is not going to be the same level of enthusiasm. It's just not going to be there, especially for casual audiences. Living vicariously and believing we make a difference will make a difference. I have a couple minutes left and then Q&A, so I'm going to just talk about some key things when you're thinking about interactive broadcasts and what it means for specific games. There are 3 tiers that we've identified right now. First tier being informational, just as information about either the game, the people playing, the background of it, as well as live stats, right? This is fairly easy. It's already in the game. We just need to export it and show it in interesting ways. What does that mean? Well, show it for each viewer, toggle it on and off. Next level is customization. This is the idea you have different demographics. You should be giving native experiences for each of those demographics, whether it's camera angles, whether it's language. Right now, you're watching the Russian language stream or the English language stream. The world is global. Esports are global. Esports broadcast should be global, just like in the same stadium. Right now, we're segmenting into chat rooms, right? There's no real reason to do that other than we're trapped in like an old mindset of different broadcast, like in Japan or in many countries, you just press the button and you get different language, right? We should be able to do that for broadcasts, and we can. And it's just a example there. And then the craziest layer, and we do a lot of work in this, and we think this is where the real long tail is where viewers make a difference. And whether it's the immediate thing people think about is Hunger Games and viewers dropping in items. If you watch and you believe that you can make a difference, it can still be competitive and make a difference. That's literally what most mainstream sports are today. And feel free to go to our website or talk to anyone who's integrated us, and it's a growing list as well. And we're always showing examples of where viewers actually can not just cheer and change a tally for who is most popular, but actually affect players. And this is a game design challenge. I won't claim to say that we've solved what the right balance is, but it definitely exists. And it's only when game developers start attacking it and knowing that they can do this that we'll actually get games that are built and succeed around this construct. Yeah. So there are many ways of monetizing, whether you're doing premium pass, sponsored streams, or even doing microtransaction-based sales. And not all things are equal in terms of difficulty. Most of your first easy wins are going to be for information. You already kind of know what stats, et cetera, you have, and you can demonstrate that. A little bit more work needs to go into identifying who your key demographics are, and even the highest work in terms of a design challenge are going to be that balance of the viewing audience. So there are a lot of opportunities for demonstrating growth of the pie. It's not just about sponsorships. It is about that today because, again, game developers aren't really controlling their broadcasts. I think that'll change. I think a year from now we'll be in a very different ecosystem. And I have one more slide, which is, again, when viewers believe they're part of the action and players know that viewers are there, you get a really cool ecosystem going. And with that, I'll end my talk. I have a whole bunch of other case studies. Feel free to come up to me afterwards. But in the interim, I think I have 1 minute or two for questions. Thank you.
We can take one question or two depending on how elaborate the questions are. Do you guys have anything to ask?
Obviously, you use Twitch as the example, but
yeah.
Could this be used across stuff like Facebook Gaming, YouTube,
absolutely,
and stuff like that? And
yes.
Has it been yet, or is it?
So we support today, Genvid supports officially the YouTube player. YouTube doesn't have a publicly disclosed extension system, so you can't go to youtube.com and have that. It is what it is. And we, in general, support a whole bunch of players. I haven't made an announcement about those yet, but you'll see some more coming up.
One more question?
Question over there, on the right.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, I saw your talk last year.
Oh, thank you.
Same place. What's changed since last year in terms of, because I think you showed the similar CSGO.
Right. What's changed last year is we're having multiple tournament organizers doing it. The cheering has changed drastically, as well as I think the platforms are noticing that this is a thing they can do. So last year we had one channel, a side channel that all it could do was follow one player, whoever that player was. Now you have 11 streams. We have you can watch multiple at the same time, and that cheering element is also being brought back into the main broadcast as far as Counter-Strike goes. In general, game development takes some time, and publicly disclosing things takes some time. So in terms of the back end, in terms of what developers are experimenting with, there's tons of stuff that's happening. Unfortunately, in terms of what's publicly facing, in terms of Counter-Strike, that's the main advancement. There are a whole bunch of games that I didn't have time to because 15 minutes is kind of short, that have integrated, that have live streams, that have 30 times the amount of engagement that a traditional, well, forget traditional, even the interactive Counter-Strike stats are showing us, because they're thought of from the ground up in terms of viewer interactivity. So that's all I have to share, unfortunately, in the public arena. So with that, feel free to come up to me afterwards. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you.
Thank you, Chris.